morning, and today I will be talking about whistleblowing and organizational commitment. In the provided stimulus materials, Jacob Lawrence's confrontation at the bridge depicts a group of African American individuals fearful of crossing the bridge. This is a depiction of Bloody Sunday, which was a massacre in Selma, Alabama. And so I wanted to see how people stood up to authority in my presentation. Recently, I learned about the Padilla family's fight against alleged Title IX violations in their school district. They received major backlash from their community, and I wanted to further investigate this. In Maddie Hanna's article in the Philadelphia Inquirer, she said, Mike Padilla said that most people aren't going to do this, meaning most people aren't going to stand up against the district and blow the whistle. And so I wanted to know if commitment to an organization had an impact if people spoke up. And so that leads me to my research question of how does organizational commitment impact the challenges experienced by whistleblowers when facing repercussions from their colleagues, peers, and organization? I proposed two solutions. My first one is having a supportive organizational culture that fosters acceptance of whistleblowing, as well as more defined laws and protections for whistleblowers. Now I'm going to begin with a review of whistleblowing. In a study by Ching-Pu Chen and Chung-Sung Lai, they simply say that whistleblowing is the disclosure of illegitimate practices in an organization. And many of you might wonder, isn't there laws and protections that protect whistleblowers? And while there is the Whistleblower Protection Act and Non-Federal Whistleblower Protection Act, these laws simply only apply to those who are affiliated with the government. So as, for example, defense contractors or people who work in Congress. There's no law that specifically protects whistleblowers. And so loyalty to an institution significantly impacts the decision to whistleblow, and repercussions that come from whistleblowing are undesirable. So those who have high organizational commitment might be conflicted whether or not they blow the whistle or not. Chen and Lai's study says that there are multiple levels of organizational commitment, high and low levels. High organizational commitment are significantly less likely to blow the whistle, and this could be because they are aware of the organizational culture and the repercussions that could come from that. They also don't want to cause issues within the organization, and they don't want to have their job put at risk. For low level of commitment, they are significantly more likely to blow the whistle, especially if high perceived harm is relevant, because they don't want their job to be at risk, especially since they have low commitment to the organization. This means that they're more sporadic and more of a wild card. Organizations cannot predict what they will necessarily do. Mary Curtis, professor of social science at Texas State University, says high commitment non-whistleblowers will stand by the organization, even if the organization is in the wrong. In this Facebook comment by a staff member who is a coach at this district where alleged Title IX violations occurred, this person commends the district for their actions as well as the athletic director and the staff. Now, this person might have an alternate viewpoint on the issue, but also Mary Curtis says that social exchange theory could be applied in this situation. This means that the social exchange theory says that those who benefit from an organization have no reason to blow the whistle. And so this basically means that employees will attempt to maximize the rewards while minimizing the cost to them. So this person might want to stand by their organization to keep their position within the organization and respect from the organization. And so this leads me to retaliation against whistleblowers. This is extremely, extremely common. And Kate Kenny, professor of social science at Galway University, says that 75% of whistleblowers have reported bullying, harassment, or ostracization from their workplace peers. And so this leads me into the Padilla situation, where online they received major backlash from their community. While some were supportive, like the comments as you see on the right side, many were either uninformed or retaliated against them. And so in Megan Van Profit's article, she talks about a whistleblower named Brian who retaliated or who blew the whistle against his organization. And his organization made false claims about him to make it look like the organization was in the right and Brian was in the wrong. And so this is an issue, and this is extremely common with whistleblowing and in organizations that aren't necessarily exactly ethical. In the theory of planned behavior in Mary Curtis's article, She says that individuals will conform to avoid negative behaviors, which explains why some individuals might not speak up about an issue and which leaves the whistleblower as the only person who's speaking up. Also, organizational culture has a significant role in whistleblowing. In the provided stimulus materials, Moral Courage by Ira Charleff and Ted Thomas, they say that organizations that have poor culture have more of a zero tolerance policy to whistleblowing. And this ultimately will trickle down to the whistleblower. The organization allows wrongdoing to occur, which allows members or peers of the organization to bully and ostracize the whistleblower, and which will impact the whistleblower in the future. And so whistleblowers are challenged with, especially those who have high organizational commitment. Do they go with the organizational values, their personal values, or their situational values? And so Ashe Goshe, professor at Kolashe University, says that those with high moral reasoning have more likely chance of blowing a whistle. In addition, Thomas and Charleff say that non-whistleblowers will rationalize their wrongdoing by saying they're just doing their job, they're just following what the organization wants. And this is an issue. And so throughout the presentation, we have been examining how organizational commitment has impacted the challenges experienced by whistleblowers when facing repercussions from their colleagues and peers within their organization. I propose two solutions. The first one is having a supportive organizational culture. In Thomas and Charleff's argument, they say that those cultures that have a good environment have less likelihood of bullying after whistleblowing, as well as a lower rates of whistleblowing. And this will be implemented through training, as well as anonymous discussions of the organization and their values. In addition, this would create a community which would foster acceptance of whistleblowers. However, some limitations to this is people in power in poor organizations are going to want to stay in power and aren't going to want programs like this to benefit their organization in the future. In addition, organizations might not have enough funds to provide trainings like this, as it would take up significant portions of the work day or work year. My second solution is more defined laws and protections of whistleblowers. In Megan Van Profit's article about Brian, she says that he found a group of individuals who lobbied for laws, and that ultimately helped him in the long run. This would prohibit any punishment or retaliation for whistleblowers, as well as provide an anonymous way to report whistleblowing. However, some of the limitations from this could be limited support from the government, as well as it's not a universal law. It would only apply to certain sections, especially in the United States. And these issues would still go unreported. This is not an end-all, do-all law. Issues in organizations would still happen, and there would still be significant consequences for whistleblowers. And so, as I discussed, organizational commitment and culture are significant predictors of whether or not a whistleblower reports the issue. And so this leads me to my question for you. Would you blow the whistle? Thank you.
All right, first oral defense question. How did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process?
Yeah, so originally I started out with a question on education and whistleblowing. And the information I found in that, such as Minu Dixon's article on education, he found that a lot of times education, especially teachers, aren't going to whistleblow. And that was actually seen in my presentation with the comment from the coach at the school district. And so that ultimately helped me evolve my research, because I originally went from an educational standpoint to a more overarching organizational standpoint. And because I found his article, that helped me come up with my conclusions and solutions.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Trevor, question 2. How did you use the conclusions or questions of others to advance your own research?
Yeah, so in, Thomas and Charleff's article about organizational culture was significant for me, and their conclusion was that organizations that have poor culture are not going to be as tolerant to whistleblowers as those who have high culture. And that led me to my conclusion of having seminars and groups that would promote whistleblowing in organizations, especially in organizations that have a poor organizational culture. And so their argument helped me, led me to the conclusion of having those types of seminars and those types of roundtable discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you.